I am displaced. Chapter 1. Life as we knew it. When I close my eyes and think of my childhood, I see pine forests and snow-capped mountains. I hear rushing rivers. I feel the calm earth beneath my feet. I was born in the Swat Valley, once known as the Switzerland of the East. Others have called it paradise, and that is how I think of Swat. It is the backdrop to all my happiest childhood memories, running in the streets with my friends, playing on the roof of our house in Mingora, the main city in Swat, visiting our cousins and extended family in Shangla, the mountain village where both of my parents were born, listening to my mother and all her friends chatting over afternoon tea in our home, and my father discussing politics with his friends. I do recall my father talking about the Taliban, but as a faraway threat. Even as a young child, I was interested in politics and would listen to everything my father and his friends discussed, even if I didn't always understand. In those days, the Taliban were in Afghanistan, not Pakistan. Nothing for us to be concerned with. Certainly nothing for me and my younger brother, Khushal, to worry about. And then came Atal, the baby. My biggest problem was how I felt about these brothers taking over the house. That began to change in 2004. I was only 6 years old, so I didn't notice anything at first. But when I think back on those years, my memories are tinged with the fear that I know must have been growing in my parents' eyes. And then 5 years later, my beloved Swat was no longer safe, and we were forced from our home, along with hundreds of thousands of others. It started slowly. Our country had begun a time of advancement for women, but our region was going backward. In 2003, my father opened his first high school, and boys and girls attended classes together. By 2004, co-ed classes were not possible. An earthquake in 2005 was not only devastating for the destruction it caused and the lives it took. More than 73,000 were killed, including 18,000 children. But it also left vulnerable survivors. When men from an extremist group who had provided aid to so many who had been displaced by this natural disaster began to preach that the earthquake was a warning from God, people listened. Soon those men, who later became part of the Taliban, began preaching strict interpretations of Islam on the local radio, saying that all women must cover their faces entirely, and that music and dancing and Western movies were sinful, that men should grow their beards long, that girls should not go to school. This was not our Islam. These were religious fundamentalists who claimed they wanted to return to an old way of living, which was ironic considering that they used technology, the radio, to spread this very message. They attacked our daily way of life in the name of Islam. They told people what they could wear, what they could listen to, what they could watch. And most of all, they tried to take away the rights of women. By 2007, the dictates had become more aggressive and specific. They called for TVs, computers, and other electronics to be not only banished from homes, but also burned and destroyed. I can still smell the stench of melting plastic and wires from the bonfires they organized. They aggressively discouraged girls from going to school, commending by name parents who had kept their girls out of school, as well as the girls themselves, and condemning by name those who had not. Soon they declared that educating girls was un-Islamic. How was going to school un-Islamic? It made no sense to me. How was any of this un-Islamic? My family mostly ignored these commands, though we did start lowering the volume on our TV in case anyone walking by outside could hear us. The call for girls to be kept home upset my father, Ziyuddin, too. He ran 2 schools that he had built from scratch. One was for girls. At first, these extremists still felt fringe to my father, more an annoyance than a real terror. He had been focusing his activism on the environment. Our city was growing quickly. Air pollution and access to clean